welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here. Check out the series. Of course, you know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with your favorite artists. And I'm so excited to have him back with a brand new record, CMF2. He's currently on tour. Corey Taylor, hi.
Hi, man. How you doing? Sorry about the background noise. I'm still on the bus. We haven't made it to the hotel yet, so you're just gonna have to deal with just when you thought you couldn't get over my voice quick enough, now you got this bus noise in the background. So there you go.
Just something to lull us into comfort is what it is. It's like
Yeah,
a soothing thing for
exactly.
babies. Yeah. Man, it's good to see you again. Last time we talked was on the last solo record, and here you are back again. I mean, you're always busy, but this thing, I laugh. I think I laughed last time when I listened to it, not laughing, but it's almost
Right.
like your solo records are like a challenge to us to show that you can do anything. You do all the genres. It's like,
Right.
yeah, I was thinking like Arctic Monkeys had that album, Whatever You Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, and you just like ran with that and took it to heart.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's crazy because every time I think I'm running out of songs, I find a folder on my computer and I find like 4 songs I forgot I wrote like from 15 years ago. I'm like, what are these? What the hell? So I swear I'm not trying to do this. It just happens, like, I mean, it's a good problem to have.
It's absolutely. Well, I do love the record. I mean, seriously, it's the heavy moments are heavy, the ballads are beautiful. I mean, it's really kind of everything you want in a style like this. And it starts out, I mean, that song The Box at the beginning, which anytime you put, a mandolin or anything on that song, of course I'm going to start thinking of REM. And
Right.
but that,
The cool thing about that is that piece was actually the first thing I wrote on mandolin after I bought a mandolin. So it was the first thing that came out. I tuned it to a very specific tuning, and I just started tinkering, and that thing just came out of me, and I was like, well, there's the intro. I mean, it was literally that quick, man. It was crazy.
That's the same story with Losing My Religion.
Right. I remember hearing that. And
Yeah.
that line is so beautiful that it was just like, how could you not,
Yeah. Well, the way it even like this is the track that sets up the record. I mean, it seems like very purposeful. You're talking about here's the show. It's like, it's on with the show.
Right.
Like when you're putting this together, how much thought goes into this as I don't know if a conceptual piece is the right way to say it, but it does sort of set it up like you're in for something.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I knew on this album I wanted to focus a little more because the first album was just almost like just a kind of a collection of songs. There wasn't really any specific direction. It was just, listen, I may never get this opportunity again. Let's just put out these songs that I've had over the years and see if anybody likes them, And once I realized that people were really into my songwriting, that's when it really became okay, I've got the audience. Let's see how far we can push this now. Let's like hone this in and really take people on a journey. So from the second I started kind of, fashioning this thing together, I knew that I wanted the intro to be almost a spoiler for an explosion musically, So when I wrote that piece, I was like, well, this is the intro, and then it became a challenge of how do we make this thing sound haunting yet familiar and really inviting, So it just, when we were putting it together, it was just like, I don't want anybody to use regular instruments. I want people to bring in something that, sounds like a dobro, or it sounds like, like it was so much fun to build that moment and to hear it put back together and to really have that kind of really take the album off. I was just like, this is going to be special, dude.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense too, because, hearing even later on down with Midnights and
Right.
and even Starmate, because, Midnight, I think I was reading like Bowie inspired, which, Bowie's like my North Star when it comes to
Very.
anything artistic and everything. But that's, that's what we got with every one of his records, right to the end, with Lazarus. I mean,
Yeah.
that was sort of thing. What was it about Bowie that you were taking from?
Oh, his courage, dude, is ridiculous. Not only that, but I don't think he ever really got the credit that he deserved. Everybody called him chameleonic. That wasn't correct because he was always ahead of the curve. He was ahead of the trend. He was always running with whatever was going to happen next, man. And people were trying to keep up with him. So to me, it was almost this prescient idea that he just had a really great idea of what was going to be next. Ziggy was a precursor to really what punk became. Scary Monsters, and I mean that was a precursor to what was going to become new wave, really. And it just was all it just all fell into place. He just knew what was going to happen. For me, that's kind of the inspiration that I take from him. Not just the fact that he was a brilliant songwriter and just absolutely fearless when it came to like putting music together, but when it came to just putting something out and not caring what the trend was, not caring what was selling, not caring what felt safe. That's what it is. It doesn't matter what feels safe. This is what's coming from my heart. So it may be different, it may be dangerous, but it doesn't matter because it's coming from me. And that, to me, that's the greatest lesson that I've taken from him. Not only from him, but Prince. Just a host of different artists over the years who they went with their heart and they didn't care about what was selling. You're like, listen, you're either going to dig this or you're not. After it leaves my hands, it's up to you.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too, the way, I'll throw this compliment your way as well. I hear this in your music because it's the way they would, like, for him specifically, I've been listening this week to the Station to Station album more, and Golden Years is on there.
Yeah.
And I've heard Golden Years a million times, but for the first time I started hearing it, I guess mathematically, like the way he lays out that first line, "Don't let me hear you say life is taking you nowhere, angel." And it's complicated, but it's in this other, it's shiny and you can sing along to it.
Right.
And those, that's what I say. I find that those moments happen on your record, whether they're intentional or not. That's sort of in there because there are these challenging moments, but it's still, and I mean this in the most broadest term possible, it's still sort of in the pop structure. It's still there.
Right. Well, yeah. I don't know how to write something that doesn't have a hook. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a melodic hook. It's just something that catches the ear, because I think that's part of the reason why Slipknot has stayed around as much as possible, because we've always had that ear for candy, basically. We've always had that ear for what's going to draw the audience in and keep them there and keep them wanting to hear whatever, whether it's a vocal hook or a music hook, it doesn't matter. So to me, it's something that's just in my DNA. I can't help it. So why fight it? Why try to write something that doesn't get stuck in somebody's ear? Like Wrath of Khan. It's always going to be there. And that's, to me, that's my favorite part of songwriting, is just kind of trying to maneuver and also trying new things. Like looking at the way lyrics fall and playing with the aesthetic of the lines, and really kind of sometimes writing the lyrics and then working the music to it, and really be able to play with the way that those things fall. That to me is the greatest challenge, is finding new ways to do things that you feel like you've been doing forever. But once you've gotten to the point where you've kind of turned around and you have this massive material, it's like, where do you go to kind of keep it fresh? And that's kind of where I've been looking at this stuff.
Yeah. And what's interesting too about this record, that's almost flipped from the old thing, because coming from Slipknot, even though Stone Sour existed, it was almost surprising when we would hear a song like what was that, like the country Breath of Fresh Smoke.
Oh yeah,
it's almost surprising. Now it's almost surprising when I'm listening to your solo records and I hear the heavy stuff. Like, you're still bringing out, like, your voice is still a beast. It comes out of there.
This is probably the best my voice has sounded in years too. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
Well, that's what when I was younger and I would hear people over 40 singing heavy music,
Right.
screaming, I always thought when I was younger that that must be performative, because where are you finding that?
Right.
When you're older. And now that I've gotten older, it's like that's not the case. That doesn't need to be performative.
No.
Where's that coming from for you now? And has that changed through the years? Because it's still, like I said, extremely heavy.
Yeah. I mean, I I don't think I'll ever be a truly peaceful person. And I know that's so cliche these days, but I mean, there's still things that get my blood up. Maybe it's the Irish in me, maybe it's the German in me. I'm not really, maybe it's a combination of the two. Um, there's still things in this world that fire me up hard, especially the way that we talk to each other and the way we act towards each other and the way we treat people these days is so ugly and gross that it makes me need to use that voice, but just when I thought I could kind of keep myself calm when I was talking to my kids, I'm unleashing the dad voice on the audience. It's and poor Griff grew up with it more than his sister has, but it's he definitely knows when it's time to straighten up and listen to dad. Which is probably why he has that voice now. But I've just got I don't know if it's just because I'm protective of people or if I'm really, you know, conscious of the things that go on culturally, society wise, politically. I mean, just so many different things that you can look at that fire you up. That if you have that passion, it's never going to go away. So for me, that's really what it is. As long as you're writing about the things that you can, kind of, you know, lean into eloquently in that sense, then that thing's going to it's just going to come naturally. It's when you try to force it that it sounds forced. And I don't think people realize that, man. It's like when you hear something that feels forced, it's probably because that artist doesn't really believe in it. And to me, I'm never going to do that to the audience. I'm never going to make people feel like I'm talking about something that I don't care about because I don't have time for that. Nobody has time for that.
Yeah. Well, and that's evident too, because I think that's, as we go back to the beginning of the interview, hearing all these different sounds, it's not like you tried to say, well, I'm the metal guy, so here's another metal album. It's like you do get those songs. You do go from metal to country, back to back, and somehow make that work. Which, by the way, I brought that song up, the Breath of Fresh Smoke. Does, on a song like that, where you even reference gasoline, and which might be used as a country trope sometimes, the road.
Right.
Does the line come first and then you're like, this is a country song, or does the style come first and you're like, and now we're throwing in yeah.
It's a good question. I mean, I wrote that song 16 years ago, or actually longer, that's about 17 years ago, to be honest. And I wrote that song when I discovered Ray Lamontagne, and who is to me one of the greatest modern songwriters. Mm-hmm. He and DiFranco really were the two people that inspired me to write acoustically, and to take it to the places that I've been able to kind of take it to. And when I was writing that, I wanted to kind of get into somebody else's perspective, and really try to, take it somewhere. So the line, she had a full tank of gas and half a mind to try, like that to me came very quickly, because that song is all about getting out of a small town, getting out of a small situation, getting out of a relationship that makes you feel small, like, so that to me was the key, was the escape, was the run towards the freedom that your heart is just so desperate to feel. And once I found that, it didn't really matter if it was country or, because I kind of call it an Irish country. It kind of has that,
it's a waltz, right?
On kind of vibe to it, that. So it's in 3/4, and it just, that bounce where you're sitting on the stool going, I just want to sing along to this song, And once I had that, I was like, this thing's going to be really a lot of fun. And I've played it over the years in a couple of different amalgamations that I've had. And people responded so well to it that I was like, well, I tell you what, if I get the chance to make that second album, that one's going on there. And I know I've heard from people that are like, we've been waiting years for you to really record this. So it was very gratifying.
Yeah, when I was listening to it in the car, and that was one of the things, like, he wrote a waltz. Look at that.
I did.
He put a waltz on the record. It was a really, really great moment in there. And those moments are, they're you know, like I said, so much on here that it's just kind of fun to kind of grab and hang on. You know, and I brought up, like, Midnights is great and Talk Sick is great. I was watching you play the recording you showed of the little amp that you used on that. Although I'd wondered, like, maybe it's just coincidence because music, but Sleigh Bells Infinity Guitars has that same type of intro. And I was like, I wonder if that was sort of in the back of his mind.
No, not really. I mean, we just wanted it to sound like somebody was carving up the speaker with razor blades, you know, like we wanted it to have this gross vibe, because that song is kind of like an amalgam of punk and pub rock in a weird way, you know, and then there's hardcore at the end. So it's like this really weird collision of great styles that just works for some reason, you know. So I wanted it to come out of the gate almost like the killer coming out of the closet with a chainsaw, you know, he's ready to get you. And that just had that right tone. So I mean, it's a good coincidence, a good, you know, good problem to have, basically.
Yeah. Well, I love every bit of it. You're out on the road. Like I said, we're going to see you here in Louisville. You're playing Louder Than Life on September 22nd. You're on the same day as Tool and Godsmack and Biscuit and Megadeth and Bad Omens and Dance Gap. Like, it's a pretty good day. So
yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it.
Looking forward to seeing you out there. I'll wrap up with this. Famous Monsters. Are you still working on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My partner, Eben, and I are kind of putting the foundation pieces together. Our first real convention back as Famous Monsters is coming up October 13th to the 15th in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. And we are still working on putting together almost a semi-annual magazine again. We are looking to kind of start co-producing movies and really getting the name and the brand back out there in a way that it, you know, cherishes its legacy, but is moving into the modern times. You know, we want it to be very well rounded and something that, you know, it draws people in, whether you're into current, you know, monster movies or the old stuff. We want it to feel we're bringing the family back together again, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I bought it in the first place. I was just like, this is I want this place to feel like the destination, you know, and I want people to feel good when they talk about it.
Now, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with that. I'm looking forward to seeing you back here in Louisville, Corey. It's always so fun to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time today, man.
No worries, man. It's my pleasure. Thanks, buddy.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.